March 4th, 2020. Joe here at Simple Life Show. Appreciate everybody for joining me today. I'm sure everyone has been caught up by now with the results of Super Tuesday. You know, we talk about politics a lot, but I like to interweave what all of this really means into a nice package of truth and a dose of reality. But I watched the Super Tuesday results yesterday. I did not catch all of them or anything like that. I didn't want to stay up because at a certain point of the night, I knew what was actually going on. I knew that Biden was kind of running away with it. Now, he is not that far into the lead. I don't even know if all the delegates are actually all counted as of right now. We're sitting at 566 for Biden, 501 to Sanders. Those are just the numbers. So what are we really talking about today? What really happened? Everyone thought that Bernie Sanders was going to run away with this thing and have a huge lead going into the remaining primaries and into the convention. But now we are looking down the barrel of a possible contested or brokered convention. If you don't know what this means, it just means that no one candidate gets the plurality of votes. They do not get to the 1991 delegates needed, which would be a plurality of 39-79. So what happens is they go to the convention and they have a vote. If one candidate does not get the plurality of votes at that point or get to 1991, then we get the super delegates to come in for round two. Of course, that's when things get really interesting and really chaotic, because all of these super delegates will be vying or be harassed or being trying to convinced to vote for their candidate. The Democrats simply just do not want this. Now, I have to admit, when I was watching this, I was really surprised at a lot of things that were going on. I did watch multiple different, I watched Fox News, I watched CNN, MSNBC. Those are the big three. And I was flipping back and forth to kind of see how things were being described. First thing I want to show you today was that there was a discrepancy in how people were, or how the information or the percentages and the statistics were actually being displayed. Case in point had to do with the favorability or unfavorability of either Biden, Sanders, or Warren. Warren was still running. Surprisingly enough, of course, we know that Buttigieg and Klobuchar, she and he, respectively, dropped out and lended their support to Joe Biden, which really doesn't make any sense because Buttigieg was actually doing pretty well going into Super Tuesday, and I was disappointed to see him drop out. Every time I watched the debate between the floundering of Joe Biden, the crazy talk of course, Sanders, and Warren trying to throw everyone under her bus, and, of course, Bloomberg hiding underneath his podium, Buttigieg was the only one that actually sounded somewhat reasonable. Now, I'm not voting for any of these people, mind you. I will still probably vote for Trump. There are some things that Trump has done over the past few months that I do not agree with, but for the most part, I can still consider myself on the Trump train, and that's, I guess, a good thing. But I do have some problems with what happened last night. So the first image, I'm going to show you a couple images from MSNBC. And the first image is when one of the polls were about to break, and you can see here some unfavorable/favorable statistics at the bottom. Now, this was from Colorado, and it shows Elizabeth Warren as 72% favorable, and overall Democratic primary voters 25% unfavorable. So that was for Elizabeth Warren. So they were trying to bolster Elizabeth Warren by saying, yeah, she's 72% favorable, right? It's in green. Now, stick with me here because I'm going to show you another picture. Not too much long after that, we see Colorado, and we see here for, I believe this is for Michael Bloomberg. So they're trying to bolster him up as well. Of course, he has no chance, but see here, favorable in green. Going on to the next photo. We see Joe Biden at 63% favorable, right? Pretty simple. However, look what happens next. The same category of unfavorable switches, or favorable switches to unfavorable for Colorado. They are using the green color for unfavorable and the icky, nasty yellow color that's just horrible. You don't even want to look at it under favorable. What is MSNBC trying to do? They have been caught red-handed trying to manipulate everyone's feelings for Bernie Sanders. Now, why are they doing this? Is it simply because that the country is not ready for a socialist, right? We've heard it over and over and over again. And don't get me wrong, I am not a Bernie Sanders supporter. I am not a cheerleader for anyone. But I do believe in democracy. I do believe that every person, regardless of where you come from or what you believe, deserves to be heard and deserves to have a fair process in our elections. But we are going to see this over and over and over again. I knew Super Tuesday was going to be a complete circus stunt. But we've seen that over and over with mainstream media. And it's not surprising it's from MSNBC. Please understand, if you didn't catch what I was saying, I'll go over it again. I'll go back to the first one. Look, favorable, 72%. Elizabeth Warren, Colorado. We all know that Bernie was going to win Colorado, right? Simple. I used to live in Colorado. I know the voters there. 72% favorable. On to the second one here. This was for Michael Bloomberg, 41% favorable. All the establishment picks, right? Third, we have same one, Colorado. It's Joe Biden, 63% favorable. Notice how it's on this side. Now, for some reason, they just get everything mixed up when they come with Bernie Sanders, right? 35% unfavorable. Oh, well, that must be that's the one that they want you to look at. The unfavorable. How biased can you possibly be? And that's what we're talking about right now. We are talking about how biased everything is in these so-called Democratic elections. Some can argue that that's how Trump was elected. I think there's a lot of reasons why Trump was elected. But we're not talking about that right now. We are talking about the Democratic primary, and I know there's a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters out there that are looking at this very cautiously because they don't know and they don't trust this whole process. As well, they probably shouldn't because of the media and how they are unchecked and how biased they are, and they know how they can manipulate the public. They know there's teams of psychologists. You think these people who run these networks are stupid? You think they don't understand human psychology? They absolutely do. Remember Richard Epstein. If you don't know who Richard Epstein is, he is one of the guys that did studies on Google. And he is a psychologist, but he's done studies on Google and mass media manipulation of the public and what they do and how they act and all that other. It's all psychological. It's all psychological, excuse me. But this guy actually came out with an article, and I don't know if we'll get into it right this second. But Robert Epstein. He recently testified in Congress about the manipulation that Google was using and their parent company Alphabet was using to manipulate the votes. And when I say manipulate the votes, I'm not talking about changing the votes. What I'm talking about is actually using psychology through the mass media, through the internet search results, through pushing notifications to certain demographics to make sure they get out there and vote. But it's not done for It's not done for the other side. It's not done for Republicans, but just Democrats. What do you think would happen in 2018? Why was that so weird? No, it wasn't weird. There was such a turnout, and that's what I was talking about. Beware the turnout. The Democrats will show up, and Google and Alphabet made sure that happened. This was based on years and years of study, all the way back to 2013, on how social media has affected elections and turnout. He has testified before Congress that upwards of 10 million votes can be manipulated in one given election. And he also testified that at least a couple million votes were manipulated. And when I say manipulated, please understand, I don't mean changed. But if you want to talk about Russia manipulation and how they were using social media to supposedly influence others, let's just use that word, influenced. I mean, there is an issue and there's a problem. I mean, you can be a politician and you can run your own advertising. You can run your own commercials and all this other kind of stuff. But there is a difference when you specifically target and you try to manipulate the outcomes of certain things. And if you don't think social media can do this, you're sorely mistaken. And that's why he is saying that Republicans simply cannot win in 2020. I hope he's wrong, because I would like to keep my Second Amendment rights. I would like to keep a lot of the liberties that I do have, even though I am at heart Democrat liberal. I do not follow the liberal ideology as it stands right now, but I still have a liberal heart. There is a difference. Talk to anyone that used to refer to themselves as a classical liberal, and they will let you know that that term was stolen by the progressive left. And it distorts. I mean, the progressive left has distorted a lot of things in our society. And now the tech companies who are supporting all of this liberal propaganda and this ideology of progressivism, they are the ones who are manipulating all this stuff. They are in the pockets of these politicians because they fill their pockets. They are the ones that run a lot of their campaigns. Alphabet was one of the biggest supporters of Clinton. Where do you think she got all of her money from? It came from Google. Why do you think you can't find, or why you couldn't find, anything negative about Hillary Clinton in the search results? Why was it all buried down? It's the same reason why Alex Jones was buried down by Google before they finally got rid of him, before YouTube got rid of him. Of course, that's part of Google now. You see how all this consolidation is working? Please understand, a lot of this is manipulated. A lot of this is manipulated. So that wasn't the only thing that I saw that was a problem. Here on Twitter, there's a hashtag that is taking off right now. It's called voter suppression. It's got over 35,000 tweets just in the last probably 12 hours. So a lot of this has to do with what I'm talking about. Voter suppression, the manipulation, but we're also talking about polling places here. There's a report out of Texas reporting, and now this is from the Huffington Post, and I understand that there's it's a left-leaning publication. I look at all different types of publications, but I am seeing this as a fact that a lot of people are talking about. The report says Texas rapidly reduced number of polling sites in Black and Latino communities. We are seeing this in a lot of the poor and urban areas, the poorer areas, where you see these long lines, probably understaffed as well, and closing early. I was surprised at how early a lot of these polling places were closing. It just didn't make any sense to me. I'm sitting over here on Eastern Standard Time, and I'm seeing a lot of these polls closing, and a lot of people just getting shut out at like 8 o'clock. I've never seen anything like that. Why do you think Biden did so well? Maybe all of the rich, white, progressive liberals and Democrats were able to vote, and a lot of the subsection of the other side of this country, which would be the minorities, obviously the Hispanic population, the millennials, a lot of Generation Xers like myself. Please understand, I do not support Bernie Sanders, but I do not think he is a communist. I do not think that he is a communist. I do believe that he has respect for the Constitution, as if he would not try to subvert it, but his economics are kind of whack. They just simply don't add up. But the problem with a lot of people is that they want to label Bernie Sanders as a communist, but what Bernie Sanders, at least I think he is trying to do, is he's trying to change the system. He's trying to, and this is just video here, it's just something on, I'm not trying to play it, but let me actually just scroll that down a little bit. I'll just go back to Twitter. But what I'm really trying to say here is that that's what we've heard over and over and over the last few weeks. Specifically, now we saw Chris Matthews. He took a dump, right? He's leaving. I wonder why that is. Maybe that was set up that way. Watch for Chris Matthews to come out with a new show somewhere. Maybe still on MSNBC. But I think what really is happening, now if MSNBC wants to manipulate shit, excuse me, if they want to manipulate stuff, but if they want to manipulate stuff, it's going to, why wouldn't they stage Chris Matthews having a meltdown over and over and finally supposedly getting fired? I mean, think about it. I mean, I know that's a conspiracy theory, but watch it. I'm willing to bet at least $100 that Chris Matthews comes out with a new show here pretty soon. And he's going to be doing something different with MSNBC. We saw the fake crocodile tears from people that worked with him and stuff like that. It was like watching Rachel Maddow cry over the fake news and the concentration camps and all that kind of stuff. So, yes, voter suppression is a real thing, believe it or not. So here's a couple videos, some of the things that were happening in the voting lines yesterday.
Whether just to walk away. Some actually did, saying their experience could have been better.
I was debating on that, but I said to myself, no, don't do that. It's like it's the way it was going, like it was set up for me to walk away. Walk away, don't worry about it. But I said, no, I'm not going to do that. If it happened again, I would do the same thing all over again. If I ain't going to vote, every vote counts.
You have to be determined. Once you make up your mind, voting is an important part of everyday living in America. It doesn't matter. You can be disappointed. You can be frustrated. You can go through all the changes that you have to go through. But the number one thing is to get the job done and voice your opinion and voice how you feel about how things are going.
So that was a good example of the lines and the frustration that was out there last night, especially in some of the areas that were lower income. I'm not saying those people were low income or anything like that. I'm just saying that they were located in those areas and they were targeting those people to manipulate or influence the outcome of the election. We've seen this over and over. Here is another report about the lines.
It is an outrage that it is this hard to cast a vote in this country. And I know it is not only Texas, but in Texas specifically, over successive electoral cycles over the past 10 years, the Republican-led government in Texas has made it harder and harder and harder to vote, not only in terms of the kind of documentation you have to show when you get there, but also they have been closing precincts. They've been closing voting places systematically, particularly in places that have high minority, young people, and poor people turnout. And so some of this is deliberate. And I will say you see spikes in voter turnout some places and you get long lines. And it is more inspiring than infuriating because nobody tried to make this situation happen. But in some places in the country, and I believe Texas is one of them, it is because the state government wants it to be hard to vote.
Now, I'm no respecter of Rachel Maddow. I think that she is a complete lunatic when it comes to espousing the truth in the media. But I think that she does have a point. When you see a lot of these precincts that are closing early, you see all these long lines and all that kind of stuff, you would think in 2020 we could get our act together and make sure the majority of people in these states that want to vote can vote. But we're not seeing that. When we're still not seeing that. This has been a problem for years and years. And I have a huge problem with that as being a libertarian. I believe in democracy and I believe in liberty first and foremost, and I believe the government needs to stay out of as much as possible until it's absolutely necessary they step in. That should always be the golden rule. But with Rachel Maddow, and I'm not going to make fun of anybody. I know that there's a lot of people there to make fun of. They call their names like Rachel Mad Cow and stuff like that. Let's talk about what she's talking about, or let's talk about what everybody else is talking about, just like this Chris Matthews nonsense. I don't buy it one bit. They have always been against Bernie Sanders from the beginning. They are establishment. They wanted Joe Biden or someone else or anyone but Bernie. It was like with the Republicans, anyone but Trump. But that's what they got. Is this going to be a repeat? I don't know. I think that Bernie has a good chance. If the only chance he probably would has if he does pull out a lot of more upsets going forward. I'm sure he will be on the campaign trail, and I'm sure he will be talking to a lot of people as well. But I think that Buttigieg and Klobuchar, they dropped out because they were probably promised something over the phone. They were probably promised a cabinet position. And when you're promised a cabinet position, especially for an ex-mayor who's probably looking for work right now, yeah, he's gonna drop out real fast because he believes that Joe Biden has the best shot, and maybe he knows he's going to win already, at least the nomination. But then once we have a nominee on the Democrat side, then we have to worry about Google and all the voter manipulation, or let's just say, instead of saying manipulation, we'll say influencing. Because that's what the Russians did, right? They influenced the election, right? So that was the whole thing about the Russian influence, about a couple of memes. And I believe it was like a Jesus/devil meme. Maybe they were arm wrestling. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a meme that looked just like that, and that's what the whole thing was about, was that meme. That was the Russian trolls. Well, everything is a troll now, trust me, and that's what I'm trying to say, is that you have, even when Trump's talking about, like, Mini Mike, Pocahontas, we are always putting labels on people, and we are seeing them in negative lights. We are being manipulated one way or the other. When we put labels on people, then we refuse to actually look into the things they truly believe. We refuse to do research on an unbiased basis. And that is one of the biggest problems with this country. We are easily led sheep. And I'm sorry, those who are listening to me, you're not sheep because you're actually looking for the truth. I'm just saying that the people out there that just simply don't care, that are being led around by social media, that are being manipulated and influenced. They're having their thoughts influenced. It's all mind control. All of it. They've been doing these experiments for decades, military-grade experiments on how to control the population. And now big tech is actually doing this. Please understand, Pew Research has done a study here recently, February 21st, 2020, concerns about democracy in the digital age. There was a whole bunch of people that responded to this on their feelings about what was going to happen. Okay, so about half the experts responding to this canvassing, and so as a canvas, said people's use of technology will mostly weaken core aspects of democracy and democratic representation, but even those who expressed optimism often voiced concerns. This section includes comments about problems that were made by our respondents, regardless of their answer to the main question about the impact of technology on democracy by the year 2030. It says here, empowering the powerful, corporate and government agendas generally do not serve democratic goals or achieve democratic outcomes. They serve the goals of those in power. Please understand, this goes back, and this harkens back to the main idea of what's going on. Corporations own this country. And that's what a lot of those people that are out there that call themselves Antifa, yes, they should not be going out there, and they shouldn't be burning trash cans or beating people up. That's horrible. That's horrible. They should not be doing that. They're doing things in the wrong way. But there is a reason why a lot of these people are mad. It's not just because they just have teenage angst, because this goes through several types of generations. It goes from Generation Y, goes from the Millennials, Generation X, and so forth. Even a lot of the older people, some of the greatest generation, and the boomers, a lot of them believe this kind of stuff, and it has nothing to do with Bernie Sanders. It has nothing to do with socialism, communism versus capitalism, or anything like that. That is just a distraction to keep you from realizing what the true problem is in this country. It is not an economic system. What the problem in this country revolves around is how people relate to each other, and what they and how they can be manipulated into believing certain things. The population is always going to be the workhorse. They are the ones that either root for war, or they are the ones who protest against war. If you can have the people behind you, you can do anything. If the people want a certain thing, they will demand it, and it will be easy to implement certain things. But the problem is not a type of economic system. Yes, that is important. Economies are important for the welfare of the people. We have to have an economy. We have to have resources that are made into things that are useful for the people. But the heart of the problem and what we're really talking about is about how humanity has been molded in a way over time. Throughout the industrial age and now into the digital age. And how we will evolve going into the future because of that. Will we have a choice of who leads us down the path that we choose? Or will it all be manipulated through a digital media? That is a huge problem. That is a huge question going forward. So Pew Research did a study about this, and it was very revealing. I'll read a few of these things. Dan Gilmore, co-founder of News Co. Lab at Arizona State University, Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, professor of practice in digital media literacy, commented, governments and their corporate partners are broadly using technology to create a surveillance state and what amounts to law by unaccountable black box algorithm far beyond reaching Orwell imagined. But this can only happen in a society that can't be bothered to protect liberty or its easy-led stampede into relinquishing it. And that is happening in more and more of the Western democracies. The reemergence of public bigotry has nothing to do with technology, except to the extent that bigots use it to promote their malignant goals. Meanwhile, the institutions that are supposed to protect liberty, journalism among them, are failing to do so. In a number of jurisdictions, people have persuaded leaders to push back on the encroachments, such as partial ban on government use of facial recognition in San Francisco, but the encroachments are overwhelming and accelerating. There's no way we can stop this. It's not an unmovable object. It's an irresistible force. But it's not even interacting with an unmovable object, because the public would have to be that unmovable object, and we're not. We are slowly accepting these things. Yes, we might win a battle here and before, but we are losing the war overall. Lee Livro, I believe that's how you pronounce that name, professor of information studies at the University of California, Los Angeles, wrote, "Today, virtually no democratic state or system has sorted out how to deal with this challenge to the fundamental legitimacy of democratic processes. And my guess is that only a deep and destabilizing crisis, perhaps growing out of the rise of authoritarian, ethnic, or cultural nationalism, will prompt a serious response." I think a lot more could probably happen to cause a change in how we view this entire process. Now, I'm not talking about just the election process, but I'm talking about how we function as a society. We have become too dependent on our media. We have become too dependent on our technology to tell us what to do. Our technology literally runs our entire lives. So is it any real surprise that if a tech giant like Alphabet or Facebook or Twitter or any of the social media out there wants to press a button to create something, to create a stir, maybe to create fear, maybe to manipulate the public to do what they want them to do, if only by a small margin, if only to nudge them ever so softly in the right direction that they want them to go to? That is the reality, and not the dystopian reality that we are living right now. That is our reality. We are manipulated by technology. Our own types of brain waves are manipulated by the 5G that's out there. Now that's rolling out. You don't think they can weaponize 5G? Think again. This Robert Epstein, I'm going to play a little bit of his him testify to the Senate. I'm not going to play the whole thing because we're running a little short or a little long, and we'll conclude.
Your background, you're not a Republican, and nor are you a conservative. Is that accurate?
That would be an understatement.
And indeed, you're the former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today.
Correct.
So you're a respected academic. You testified before this committee that Google's manipulation of votes gave at least 2.6 million additional votes to Hillary Clinton in the year 2016. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I want to make sure I understand. You personally supported and voted for Hillary Clinton.
I was a very strong public supporter of Hillary Clinton, yes.
So you're not dismayed that people voted for her, but your testimony is that Google is, through bias in search results, manipulating voters in a way they're not aware of.
On a massive scale. And what I'm saying is that I believe in democracy, I believe in the free and fair election, more than I have any kind of allegiance to a candidate or a party.
And looking forward, if I understood your testimony correctly, you said in subsequent elections, Google and Facebook and Twitter and big text manipulation could manipulate as many as 15 million votes in a subsequent election?
In 2020, if all these companies are supporting the same candidate, there are 15 million votes on the line that can be shifted without people's knowledge and without leaving a paper trail for authorities to trace.
Now, you described the Go Vote reminder, and you said it wasn't a public service announcement, but rather manipulation. Can you explain how? I'm not sure everyone followed the details of that.
Well, sure. If on Election Day in 2016, if Mark Zuckerberg, for example, had chosen to send out a Go Vote reminder, say just to Democrats, and no one would have known if he had done this, that would have given that day an additional at least 450,000 votes to Democrats. And we know this without doubt because of Facebook's own published data, because they did an experiment that they didn't tell anyone about during the 2010 election. They published it in 2012. It had 60 million Facebook users involved. They sent out a Go Vote reminder, and they got something like 360,000 more people to get off their sofas and go vote who otherwise would have stayed home. The point is, I don't think that Mr. Zuckerberg sent out that reminder in 2016. I think he was overconfident. I think Google was overconfident. All these companies were. I don't think he sent that out. Without monitoring systems in place, we'll never know what these companies are doing. But the point is, in 2018, I'm sure they were more aggressive. We have lots of data to support that. And in 2020, you can bet that all of these companies are going to go all out. And the methods that they're using are invisible. They're subliminal. They're more powerful than most any effects I've ever seen in the behavioral sciences. And I've been in the behavioral sciences for almost 40 years.
You know, our Democratic colleagues on this committee often talk about what they view as the pernicious effect of big money and big corporate dollars. What you are testifying to is that a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires and giant corporations are able to spend millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars collectively, massively influencing the results of elections. And there's no accountability. You said, we don't know. We have no way of knowing if Google or Facebook or Twitter sends it to Democrats or Republicans, or how they bias it, because it's a black box with no transparency or accountability whatsoever. Am I understanding you correctly?
Senator, with respect, I must correct you.
Please.
If Mark Zuckerberg chooses to send out a Go Vote reminder just to Democrats on Election Day, that doesn't cost him a dime.
Fair enough. Do you happen to know who the Hillary Clinton campaign's #1 financial supporter was in the year 2016?
I think I do, but please remind me.
The #1 financial supporter of the Hillary Clinton campaign in the 2016 election was the parent company of Google, Alphabet, who was our first witness. They were her #1 financial donor, and your testimony is, through their deceptive search methods, they moved 2.6 million votes in her direction. I would think anybody whether or not you favor one candidate or another, should be deeply dismayed about a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires having that much power over our elections to silently and deceptively shift vote outcomes.
Again, with respect, I must correct you. The 2.6 million is a rock bottom minimum. The range is between 2.6 and 10.4 million, depending on how aggressively they used the techniques that I've been studying now for 6.5 years.
Wow. Could you just say that again, please? Just
the 2.6.
Sorry about that. But that video, that's pretty much where it ended, with that figure of 10 million. Please understand that those who are in the mass media, those who are in the search algorithms and these huge conglomerate corporations, they have a lot of power. It's not just power politically. They have power to control what you think and how you are influenced in a lot of ways. And please understand also that this is not happening to you consciously. It is happening to you subconsciously through your search, how you search on the internet, your different habits on social media. They track everything. They know you better than you know yourself. I have this website, AIRBT, which is the American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology. So it's AIBRT.org. Please check it out. This is Robert Epstein's website, and it talks about a lot of his research findings when it comes to a lot of these different types of algorithms that these companies are using in direct influence and manipulation of the public. They have a lot of great stuff on here that they do need help because they are not they are a private company. They don't have a lot of funding, but they've been doing this a long time and have been producing a lot of good research that leads us to believe, and it leads us actually to understand or better understand how we are being controlled through the media. This is very important because the vast majority of Americans spend hours upon hours in front of the TV every single day. We go to work, we come home, we spend the majority of time in front of the TV just soaking it up, either through news, information, or entertainment. And I don't even think there is a huge difference between the two because we are getting a lot of the information and a lot of the types of influences that the industrial complex wants us to have inside of our heads through our entertainment as well. Think of how political everything is in a lot of these movies and a lot of our TV shows and a lot of our entertainment. Look at the NBA and all of the things that went on with China and how they have bowed down to China because China controls them. China controls everything just as much as Alphabet controls everything over here, and social media and all the tech giants control everything over here. The issue is, and this reminds me of a famous quote from Eisenhower warning the American public of the military-industrial complex, but he was also talking about the technological industrial complex as well. We have spent our lives in fear of bombs. But the problem is that we are entering an age because when people themselves become the bombs and the weapons to influence political change. The mass media has always been, or has been, ever since the beginning against Bernie Sanders. And please understand, and I'll have to reiterate this, that I am not a Bernie Sanders supporter. I don't hate the man either. I just think that he has some good ideas that are skewed in the wrong direction. His ideas are about helping others, about helping people, about working towards equality. Capitalism is all about capital, right? It's all about raw products and producing things of value for other people that we can trade in a free and open market. It sounds really great, but it does have some negative consequences that people simply don't want to talk about all the time. Just because you want to talk about the negative consequences of a particular economic system doesn't make you a Marxist, doesn't make you a socialist, doesn't make you anything. It makes you an open-minded person that's able to look at certain things and see both the pros and the cons list of both sides. When you stop looking at that, then you just simply become a pom-pom holding cheerleader for one side or the other, and you have mentally checked out. And we have seen that over and over in our public. People are just mentally checking out of reality. And that's really kind of what I wanted to say in this video. I know it ran 40 minutes long, but please understand, this isn't about long lines. This isn't even about just voter manipulation and influencing in our social media and through the tech giants. This has to do with the American spirit that's becoming weaker and more dependent, more enslaved. We cannot think anymore. I really don't know what else to say about it other than, we'll just have to keep talking about it. We'll have to keep beating that dead horse until it comes back to life. Until next time, this is Joe with Simple Life. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.